It is finally time for a new tier list video. It has been almost 2 months since my last one. This time we have a balance patch, we have Gyarados and MIRAIDON also being added to the game. So a lot of new things we have to go through. First off, again, we go for the top and bot path tier list, and second for the central, because I kind of want to split them apart, again, for the reasoning. If I put, for example, Cinderace in A+, it doesn't really say anything about it, right? It could be A+ in central area, but, you know, in path, it's like somewhere here. So that's why I try to split them up into 2 different tier lists, so that I really understand in what role and where you should pick each Pokemon. So let's go ahead, start with the top and bot path tier list. Currently the game feels a bit weird, definitely, and gonna see how it's going to turn out. Honestly, we're gonna start with Cinderace, so we just talked about it. Definitely just still an absolutely terrible top or bot path Pokemon. Shouldn't be played. It's just way too weak in general as well, and doesn't even do that much late game either. Garchomp, I feel like, has dropped a tiny bit. It feels quite difficult to play right now. There's so many annoying Pokemon. They just feel like much better than Garchomp. I don't think it's all too bad. You can definitely play it, but I'm not the biggest Garchomp fan right now. Gengar path, not quite optimal. Really can't recommend it still currently either. Cramorant, again, one of those very underrated Pokemon. I'm just going to put it into A. I think Cramorant is always a decent choice. Ninetales is weird, but I feel like Ninetales just has completely fallen out of the meta. Like, I barely see anyone playing it. And even if they do, I mean, it's quite alright. It has 2 fine builds, but really, performance-wise, like, it's nowhere to be found. Wigglytuff, I think, is quite annoying, and I think it's quite good now as well. I know MIRAIDON does counter Wigglytuff, because the passive of MIRAIDON, that big feed it spawns, stops you from falling asleep, but I think Wigglytuff is quite underrated and pretty decent. Machamp, yeah, and he's just, again, B just means kind of balanced. Like, these Pokemon B are definitely very balanced Pokemon. You can still pick them. That's what it means. Like, B just means they are not great, but they're also not unplayable. They're somewhere in between. They're just very in the middle of, you know, being a balanced Pokemon. Maybe could receive a few small buffs, but not too much either, right? Like, if you overbuff these Pokemon, they become super strong instantly as well again. Absol and Path, it's alright. If you want to play Speedster and Path, I think Absol is one of the better choices for it as well. Nothing too amazing, but also quite fine. Slowbro, still very, very strong defender Pokemon, one of the best ones. That's because of the Unite move, right? It can always lock down the most OP Pokemon of the current patch, and they will always be very, very strong. Mr. Mime, I think, is very, very good, and also very underrated. I think A is probably fair, maybe even A+, but that would be a bit of personal bias going into it. It does have a pretty good win rate, but for, you know, the average player, I think it's probably somewhere in A tier. Venusaur, I feel like Venusaur has dropped off a tiny bit. I really don't see it all too much in my games anymore. In general, attacker don't feel all too great currently, I have to say. I'm going to put it down to B tier now. It's alright, but I feel like it got, you know, a bit power creep maybe. I mean, it got power creep by MIRAIDON as well, right? Like, there's just no chance for Venusaur to do all too much. Lucario is also just pretty much alright. You know, nothing to write home about. It's okay. Lucario is quite alright. Talonflame and Path also. I feel like my B tier is going to fill up a lot this patch. It does definitely feels like it. Also quite alright. Eldegoss is still one of the best supports in the entire game. S might be a bit too high for it, but definitely goes somewhere into the A+ tier. Next up, Greninja definitely goes into D next to Cinderace. The classic Crush got nerfed, but even then, Crush I think is quite powerful still. It's just a very underrated Pokemon still. It got nerfed, I guess, for a reason, because it's kind of overperforming, but Crush is definitely still, I think, quite a good Pokemon. Snorlax is just a reliable defender you can pick, but I feel like it's just outclassed by other defender. So, like Blastoise, Umbreon and stuff. But if you enjoy Snorlax, you can definitely play it. Charizard and Path, also pretty bad, can't recommend it. Pikachu after the buffs, it's alright. I think Pikachu is just always a fine choice. You have 2 decent builds you can go for. Either you lock down enemy speedsters, or you know, have a lot of AoE damage from far away. So Pikachu definitely not all too bad, but I really can't rate it too high either. Maybe there should be a B+ tier as well again, but man, I really can't rate it too high. Definitely not Zeraora. I just think it's absolutely terrible in pair. I mean, Zeraora is just, I don't know. This Pokemon is missing something, definitely. But maybe D is a bit too harsh. It can still cheese opponents, and on level 5, it also is honestly not too bad in Path. I think Gardevoir is quite decent on the current patch. Just by spamming Unite moves, you can win games quite harshly. Lissy, A+. Blastoise goes into S tier. Pokemon wasn't touched. Currently one of the most played Pokemon in the entire game, in tournaments as well. Very annoying to deal with. Mamoswine, solid B tier. Also nothing to, write home about, but it's still definitely playable. Again, B means they're playable. These are not bad Pokemon. You definitely can play them. You can win games. You can carry with these Pokemon. Definitely. 100%. Sylveon, I think, is a bit above the others just because evolutions are so much stronger early game that they hit their power spikes a bit earlier. Hyper Voice and Mystic Fire very strong on those levels. Greedent is a bit forgotten. I don't think it's C or D tier though, but I think B tier fits it. It's pretty much only made for people who only play Greedent at this point. The Decidueye in Path is not the worst, but you do rely on a good lane partner. So if you have a good lane partner, it's somewhere here. If you have a bad lane partner, it's here. So it's a Pokemon you need to pick depending on what the enemies have. Dragonite in Path, I absolutely dislike, still too. Can't recommend it. I don't know what this Pokemon, like, in Path it's so bad. Like, it takes so much experience to really get going. And they even nerfed Dragonite. Hyper Beam was nerfed on the latest patch, so something definitely you should be picking. Serena is a difficult one, because Serena, I had a super high win rate with it on the last patch, and I think it's better than a lot of people think. But I don't know if I could put it into A tier. I think I'm actually going to do it. I'm just going to put Serena into A tier. I had a lot of success with it, and I think it's very underrated. It just takes a lot of skill and a lot of game knowledge for it to really get going. Trevenant, I'm just going to put into S tier for now. Maybe S tier might be too high. Maybe it's going to be A+ after like a month or something. But man, Pain Split Curse or Woodhammer Pain Split, any combination right now of Trevenant feels very, very strong and annoying to deal with. Aegislash, this might sound harsh, but I'm going to pour down to C tier. Every time I play Aegislash, I just regret it instantly. It's something it needs a bit of help in certain areas. Especially in late game team fights, I feel like you can never go into the offensive form because you just die. You die so fast. Hooper, just because it's Hooper and a support, still goes into A+ to me. Dwallon Path is alright, and to B. Azumarill, I think, is still very reliable all-rounder. You can definitely pick and have a lot of success with. Espeon also. Honestly, I think Espeon is actually maybe A+. Like, Stored Power Psybeam is such a strong build, I think a lot of people sleep on still for some reason. Delphox with a Fire Spin buff, I'm going to put into A. It's very strong for Path, the additional Fire Spin cooldown, and definitely something you can pick up if you are an attacker enjoyer. Glaceon, so painful to deal with. I'm not sure if it's S tier, but at least A+ definitely. Buzzwole, easily S tier. Man, probably one of the Pokemon I complain currently the most about, for a good reason. It is so painful. Every time you load into the game as a melee or rounder, like if you play Serena, like Garchomp or something, Azumarill, and you see Buzzwole on the enemy team, you already know that you're going to have a terrible time. Trinidad Path goes into D tier for me. Can't really recommend it. Mew is either A+ or A, but I think maybe A makes a bit more sense, but Mew is definitely still a very playable Pokemon. Dodrio, it's just one of those Pokemon that will never leave the meta. I'm just going to put into A+ tier. Scizor, currently, I think it's not D, but it's definitely not higher than C tier. I know a lot of comments will say again, I have a 60% win rate, Chris, in Veteran 2 playing Scizor only. I don't know what she's saying. He's definitely higher than C tier, but he is straight up not. Clefable, easily S tier, currently probably the best support in the entire game. Zoroark is interesting. I haven't seen it much lately. I feel like it struggles decently much. And there's a lot of point and click, a lot of EVs that are very strong very early on, but definitely are probably still easily a A tier Pokemon. Sableye is not as bad as people think it is, definitely not. It goes somewhere right here, into the B tier. Wicked Blow, Shifu Path is still bad, but it's not unplayable either. You just need level 5 somehow very fast. Compared to Surging Strikes, which probably is even E or S tier, or like F tier, like even lower than D tier. Absolutely unplayable. Dragapult in Path, I do not like it at all. D tier. Again, only if you maybe have a support or defender with XP share, but even then, like, it needs a lot of experience and needs to get KOs. Comfey, probably A+. Just one of those very polarizing Pokemon. Now, Zacian is difficult to judge. I really don't know where to put it right now. I'm honestly, I know Zacian, like, every time I load into the game, I just hate seeing Zacian's face from, like, everything that happened the past year. But it doesn't seem all that strong. Like, it's somewhere probably between A and A+. Maybe, I mean, I could also have, like, EX tier, but, like, I think I should just rate it. I'm just going to put into A tier, A+ tier for now, and see how, the game evolves over the next few months or weeks, and then have an updated tier list. But I think it's somewhere between S, A+, and A. I'm just going to put in the middle. Goodra. I mean, Goodra's alright, but man, it does struggle. It does struggle quite a lot. sometimes, but definitely not the worst Pokemon either. Then we have Lapras up next, which I think is very underrated still and very, very good of a defender. People are definitely sleeping on it. But then, yeah, I'm going to put into A still. I think Lapras deserves A. Not sure. Every time I pick it, I do good with it, and I carry games. So I don't know what else to say. Chandelure, solid A Pokemon. Definitely Umbreon. This goes into S tier. Such a painful Pokemon to deal with. Absolutely hate it. Leafeon, I'm not sure if Leafeon goes S or A plus tier. It wasn't touched on latest patch, but I think maybe S tier might be still a bit too high for it. Looking at the average player base, I think A plus is probably a bit more fitting. Inteleon, still S, the best attack on the entire game. I guess Mewtwo Y probably also S tier, even in Path. Actually, I like it sometimes in Path more because you always attack opponents, which means you can build up your Mega Evolution much, much more often. Mewtwo X, I think probably also still S tier. Just even the XP share build, I think, is super, super strong, and I think both Mewtwo's are still very difficult to deal with in certain scenarios. Blaziken, to me, it's a solid A plus Pokemon, but not higher than that either. Maybe even just A. Because there's a lot of matchups that are quite difficult to deal with, and sometimes getting to your experience can be quite challenging. Mimikyu, I don't like Mimikyu in Path at all. I'm gonna put into B. In Central Area, it's higher than B, but in Path, I think I never see Mimikyus do well if you played in top or bot path, and if I played myself in top and bot path, I also don't do well with it. So, who knows? Scyther. Oh, wait, where was this? Scyther into C next to Scizor. Both are pretty equally bad, I would say. Muscarada now is quite interesting. I'm going to put into A plus tier. I don't think S tier quite yet, but I think Muscarada is definitely a great Pokemon at this point of time. To me, Metagross is great, but I think I don't know, and second Solo Cute feels very, very good, to me at least, personally. And I'm going to put into A plus tier for that reason. Gyarados, yeah, I mean, Gyarados is alright, but like, it's such a weird Pokemon. I'm really curious about the win rates after this week to see where Gyarados ends. I think A might not be quite it, but it does feel much stronger now than before. Definitely, it has also, I think, Aqua Tail Waterfall is definitely playable now. Dragon Breath and Bounce, I think, is still the best build, but I really can't put it higher than B. And then for the last Pokemon, big surprise, MIRAIDON. Who would have guessed, goes straight into S plus tier. Currently the best Pokemon on the patch. This is the tier list for top and bot path. Let me know in the comments what you think about it. There's certain things I might, switch around, like maybe Delphox should still be here, maybe Pikachu should be here, maybe Venusaur Ninetales should be here. There's a few things that are somewhere in between, so don't take this all like too straight, like there could be some mix-ups between A and B. Like the line between A and B is not that far away sometimes, so you can have personal opinions. If your Pikachu's here, that's totally fine as well. If you think Delphox is B or A, I think nothing much changes. All of these Pokemon are playable and definitely things you can consider when you go into ranked. And now for the Central Area tier list. We'll rush a bit through this one because I don't think too many people care about the Central too much, since it's only one player compared to 4 like top and bot path. Cinderace, still nothing to impress him to beat here. Garchomp has fallen off a tiny bit. I did like it a lot on some patches ago, but right now it doesn't feel all too amazing anymore. Definitely still, if them is like in draft, Garchomp could be a good draft Pokemon, but as long as we still don't have draft for the entire player base, I think it's a bit more down now. Gengar, I mean, I think Gengar for solo queue will just always be a reliable carry. Doesn't matter what, you have 2 good builds that you can decide on what to go for depending on your opponents. Cram is also very, very solid in Central Area with Dive and Air Slash. Ninetales, I can't recommend Central Area at all. Machamp as well. Machamp Central just doesn't really do all too much. Like, of course, you can still win games with it, but man, it does not feel great. Absol to me, I think, goes into A, maybe even A plus, personally, but that's kind of like personal bias over here. So I think I'm going to put into A. Venusaur, I think, is a bit better in Central Area than in Path right now, just because you get to your power spikes a bit faster, and level 13 is very important for both builds, and Central Area just allows you to get there pretty much safely. Venusaur has okay, top and pot path laning phase, but Central Area will just amplify it by much more. Talonflame also, I think, quite solid. 2 strong builds, Fly and Brave Bird. You can definitely decide. You can also, again, there's another Pokemon you can decide on what the opponents have, and then adjust your build as soon as you load into the game. Lucario, terrible Central Area Pokemon, can't recommend. Greninja, I don't know, it's just lagging a bit behind. I don't think it's all too bad. Again, B, I think, again, means playable, but they're not all too amazing. Definitely not. Charizard, I think, also goes somewhere into the B tier. I think Some people are definitely underrating it a tiny bit too much, but it's for sure nothing too amazing. The aura probably also B tier, maybe C tier. I just don't even see the aura being played at all. Like, I don't see it in my games pretty much anywhere. Pikachu, don't play it in Central, please. Gardevoir, I think, is solid A+ to me. Very, very solid. Decidueye, Spirit Shackle is a great counter to kind of Miraidon, because you can kind of outrange it sometimes. And Decidueye can always be quite fine, but you do rely a bit more on your team, definitely, when you pick Decidueye. Blastoise Central Area, I think it had its time. Currently, I wouldn't recommend it all too much. Sylveon Central Area with Mystical Fire can be quite fine. Serena can be consideration in Central Area. The only problem is that you are very reliable on your stacks, or very reliant on your stacks. So if you don't have attack weight stacks, Serena just doesn't do as much damage as it's supposed to do. So if you get your stacks, it's actually quite here. If you don't, then it can be quite risky going for Central, because you're not guaranteed early game stacks, in Central. Dragonite got nerfed for some reason, but even then I think, even with Outrage, I still think it's quite fine, and you can definitely still play Hyper Beam too. But yeah, it's kind of weird it got nerfed. Aegislash, kinda, yeah, I mean, you get to level 7 a bit faster, which makes it a good Central Area Pokemon, but it just falls off in late game quite hard. Duraludon, just always a reliable basic attack Pokemon. A bit higher than Cinderace and Greninja, I would say, just because it's just more reliable, I feel like, than those two. Just a tiny bit more reliable. Azumarill in Central Area, not the biggest fan either of. Another Pokemon that kind of wants attack weight stacks. Otherwise, it's kind of mid. I think Delphox goes into A+ to me. My opinion at least. I do like it in Central Area a lot. It has multiple different builds you can play currently. Espeon, Stored Power Psybeam is also an amazing Central Area build. So you can play not only in top bot path, but also in Central Area. Glaceon in Central, that one now goes to S tier. Definitely. It is, this Pokemon, I really want it to be nerfed. Please, please, Timmy, just nerf Glaceon. The evolution bias is a bit too much lately. Then we have a Buzzwole, which is just better on path. It can definitely Central Area, but it's just not a late game carry, right? And that's kind of the problem sometimes. Like, if you're not a late game carry in Central Area, you have to snowball the game, and if you don't, you're going to slowly lose. Mew in Central Area, still playable, but nothing all too amazing anymore, I would say, but definitely something you can consider. Scizor, my solo queue teammates love playing Scizor Central Area, and I just, every time I have it in my team, I hate it so much. Dodrio, still into A+ in my opinion. Zoroark goes to the other speedsters in A. I think the speedsters are just always good solo queue Pokemon. When it comes to coordinated play, they fall off a bit, but I mean, this tier list is not all about 5 stacking either, right? Because 5 stacking is like pandas to maybe 0.05% of the player base who actually enjoy doing that. Trinita is quite alright. But Miraidon does, and like, it targets hard into Miraidon. Like, it can't reach Miraidon. Without Miraidon, I think it would be here. With Miraidon, maybe B is probably a bit more fair. Wicked Blow Shifu, it's alright. Like, it's definitely a good bit. It's a good counter to Miraidon. As I also made a video about it a few days ago. You can check it out. Or was it yesterday? Actually, yesterday, yeah, I did a video about Miraidon with my as my Shifu against Miraidon. Definitely a good matchup. Dragapult, I think, has dropped off a tiny bit after the nerfs. I don't know exactly where it goes, though, but I think maybe A for now. Maybe A. Definitely nothing out of the extreme anymore after the nerfs. But definitely something you can still pick and consider, which is good. Zacian in Central Area, probably A+ still. I would assume so. Chandelure, solid A Pokemon. Either Overheat or Flamethrower are great Central Area builds as well. Leafeon. So Leafeon, the thing is, in Central Area, it's like, I mean, it's also good, right? Like, it's good everywhere. It's just a very strong Pokemon. In tournaments, it just gets level 4, but again, we don't really talk about tournaments much. But in tournaments, it goes Central Area to get level 4, and then it just dominates either top or bot path. And in solo queue, you can't really do it, but I guess you kinda can still, if you really want to, but you can just take a few jungle camps and go towards lane very fast and start, solar blading or razor leaving the enemy team. Italian in Central Area, just because it's a good Pokemon, goes also still into A+, or maybe even S tier. But, top or bot path, of course, it's a bit better. But it doesn't matter what, it's also still very good in Central Area. Same for Mewtwo Y. Mewtwo X in Central Area, on the other hand, I don't think it's all too great in Central Area. But probably A+. I'm not sure if it's S tier. I don't think so. Blaziken, actually big fan of Blaziken in Central Area, but I can't put it higher than A. It's also, you can play a non-stacking version of Blaziken, and it can definitely be a very good Central Area Pokemon as you get to level 7 and level 8 much faster. Mimikyu, easily a plus in Central Area. I don't think quite S tier, but definitely a plus when it comes to Central Area Pokemon. Surging Strike to Shifu, still unplayable right now. Do not play it. Scyther is alright, but I feel like there's just much better Pokemon for you to play than Scyther, and also he needs a lot of practice, so if you don't play it a lot, I feel like you're gonna underperform on it, definitely. Muscarada, probably also S+. I feel like the S tier, I don't know, what should something else be in the S tier right here? Thinking about it right now. I'm thinking what I play right now currently, but I think these probably fit, definitely, the S tier. Then we have Miraidon, of course, goes into the S+ tier. Big surprise there, also in Central Area, very OP. And then we have Metagross, which I think is quite the fine Central Area Pokemon too. Goes into A+ for me. Gyarados, definitely don't think should Central. Even you cannot get Gyarados now after or very early on, but I still wouldn't recommend putting it into the Central Area. So that's it for it. Maybe Muscarada should honestly be S tier, honestly, though. It could be, but I don't think quite. So maybe Zacian, maybe Mewtwo should be up here. Not quite sure about the Central Area meta currently, as Miraidon is just the best, and after that, like, Glaceon is also very strong. But I feel like you can play a lot of Pokemon in the Central Area currently and have a lot of success with it. So let me know in the comments what you think about the two lists. And as always, point out what you think, you know, you have disagreements with, because it's always entertaining to read and interesting to see other people's opinions. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!